Michael Brody, who is managing partner and founder and CEO of Fiduciary Search Group, a professional executive search firm. Both of these gentlemen have key responsibilities for growth strategy, and they're resident experts in the area of recruiting. So welcome and thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yep, happy to have you.
Essentially, we were built with the idea that the advisor was the client. So we're very advisor-centric, talent-driven, and firm-agnostic. And so we really have an open architecture for advisors to evaluate the landscape of independent options that exist today. Prior to that, we had a lot of success working in the wire world and helping folks navigate, one firm to the other. But obviously, in the last decade, there's been a tremendous pull and push, if you will, to the independent side of things. So we've really taken an approach that whether it's a small RIA, a large RIA, certain select broker dealers, we'll consult with them as well. Because obviously there's both sides of a transaction. You have the advisor that's looking to break away, and you have the firm that's looking to onboard them. And so we really specialize in helping to consult on both sides of the transaction from, early stages right down through the close. And most of these folks, I can say I'm happy that they've remained friends and colleagues and folks that will be with us for a very long time.
Any tips on how to find the best fit, and what are some of the key questions to ask potential recruiters to filter, deliver from those who just talk?
Great question. I think I'll just jump right in there if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Let me just say, recruiters come in all shapes and sizes. So everyone's had a phone call or 10 a day over the years from various people that come out from the woodworks. And so it's very hard to differentiate, who's calling you, what are they calling about. In the past, traditionally, recruiters had a reputation for calling an advisor to pitch them a deal and tell them about the 300 or 400% deal that was available to them. And
right.
So, you'll have folks that are internal, that are working specifically for one client. You'll have external folks like myself that have multiple clients. So you really should ask the person on the other end of the line, or who's reaching out, or if you're reaching out to them, find out about their client base, find out about their philosophy, find out about who they do business with, how they do business, what kind of process do they have. Are they quick to just give you an idea and tell you a story about somebody, or are they taking the time to really understand your motivations, your goals? And I think one of the things that separates FSG from some of the others that are out there is that, I am a former financial planner myself. I've had my 7, my 63, and my 65. I was an IAR, so I used to charge clients a fee for doing financial planning, and I did that successfully in New York City for several years throughout the 90s. And for me, it's almost, I can't believe how time flies, but almost 20 years professionally recruiting within 2 industries. One is the legal industry. When I left the financial planning role, I went and started recruiting for high-end trust and estates attorneys. So I was able to kind of stay within the industry, but yet not actually manage a book of business. And so I would just ask about their practice, their background, the types of clients that they represent. And I think that'll start to very quickly give you a sense of who they are. They may just have 1 or 2 clients, whereas with me, you're the client. So I'm representing you. And I think some of the things that are important are, again, having the recruiter or search professional really understand who you are and what you're about. And for me, it's the old adage, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And well, it's true. This cycle can take very long. Some deals I'm still working on almost 20 years later. And others, like recently, I was very fortunate to put a deal together in 3 weeks. So essentially, it's anything in between. But you really want someone who's going to be working on your behalf in your best interest. And so that was really kind of the basis of FSG, is representing the advisor and their best interest, and making sure that someone's sitting on the same side of the table as them, helping them navigate, because obviously, as we all know, this is not for the faint of heart.
So, Michael, if you want to maybe jump on that question.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's my
just
pleasure.
factors and pull factors that are really kind of creating this trend towards independence and towards fiduciary.
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, especially from the lens of an advisor who's considering joining an RIA or going down that path, is the freedom and the flexibility to really, again, be able to serve their clients as a fiduciary and doing the right thing.
Why should RIAs consider adding recruiting to their overall growth strategy? We know why it's attractive to advisors,
Sure.
but benefits and the potential benefits rather to the RIA firm that's doing the recruiting. So, Michael, if you could weigh in on that as well.
Absolutely, happy to. And it's a great question. And I'm sure one of the reasons a lot of people are logged in today, they want to understand, why they should do it. And, the truth is, there's many, many really good reasons to do it. But let's just stick with the theme we just left on the pull and push from the advisor side. From the firm side, you're bringing in a new set of clients. You're bringing in fresh blood. You're bringing in potentially an advisor that has a certain skill set that really is complementary towards the existing infrastructure that was built out. So you have an opportunity to sometimes cross-manage clients, or really give them the full service, in the sense that maybe someone has a specialty in estate planning or financial planning, or one of the disciplines that they may not have on their side that they want to attract. But I would really just say, economics. Let's be honest. If you can bring in a lot of AUM in a short period of time, well, there's your scale, there's your efficiency, which obviously will make the firm more profitable. So they can better reinvest in these technologies and adding more advisors to the firm, so they can service more clients efficiently and effectively. As I mentioned earlier, the demographics, the average age. I mean, the last 2 years have received more phone calls from, men and women in their early 60s that they're starting to look out into the future and wondering if they're going to be able to spend more time with their family and kind of sail off into the sunset. And how do they go about doing that? And so solving for succession is a big deal in our industry. And, yes, technology can handle that, but if you're able to bring in an all-star who has not only a book of business, but can help you service your book of business and solve for succession, that's really a great 2-for-1 right there. Number one, it's going to require a real commitment on the behalf of everybody at the firm, from the top to the bottom. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's not for the faint of heart. Some of these cycles, as I mentioned, can be very long and arduous, and what I like to call a bumpy road sometimes. It's not always roses and fairy tales. It's the old saying, sometimes you need to kiss a lot of toads to find that prince. The truth is, it could be a long cycle, and sometimes going through that cycle and that due diligence, you find out that it's not a good fit. And I think that's great, in the sense that you just don't want to add somebody who may disrupt the culture of the firm, which is another really big aspect of why some of these RIAs are fantastic. But the truth is, the average size of most of these firms are 8 to 10 people. So it's very important culturally to make sure that the new addition to the team is going to fit. Before COVID, we spent a lot of time in the office, a lot of time at work. And so I would just say that you want to make sure that you really like the people that you're working with, and that
Mhm.
they really fit in
Right.
culturally. I used to use the old analogy, the beer in the airport test. You know, can you get stuck in a layover and spend 3 or 4 hours with this person and not want to have to leave suddenly because you just couldn't stand it? Nowadays, it's a little bit different, but the truth is, culturally, that's a big thing. Also, growing the firm, it becomes pretty complex. You add another 100 clients, another 300 clients,
Right.
you better be able to support them. So you have to have the infrastructure in place. And I really think it has to be a cohesive plan put together and put in place that every single person to some extent is involved, and understanding that if you're going to engage in recruiting and trying to grow through inorganic growth, if you will,
Hmm.
it's there's a lot of ways to put it, but there really is a war on talent. And I guess one way I could describe it, just telling a quick story, is like National Geographic. If you watch some fishing shows or you see the ocean, you'll see this big bait ball out there, and there's a big frenzy, and the herring are going to the top, and all of a sudden you'll have a tuna jump in, and maybe a marlin, and then a shark will come, and then all of a sudden a big whale will come in and swipe. I mean, this industry is amazing because there's a lot of channels. There are many ways you can affiliate and go, and everybody's out there looking for talent to solve
Yeah.
for these succession areas. So you really got to have the heart and the wherewithal, the resources, and you really have to want to do it. But I think, as you guys are well aware, being one of the largest clearing firms and having a lot of clients, you'll see scale is very important. And so there's this race towards scale. I mean, now if you look at, there's 13,000 SEC registered RIAs in the landscape. The top 700 plus have $1 billion in assets and more, and they're merging. And if you look at the M&A reports on a regular basis, like we do as students of the game, that's on fire right now too. And so you're seeing, very large firms coming together to solve for that. I do believe there's enough food for everybody to eat, so to speak. So there are other channels that are successful.
Right.
But I also understand that you, and I should say me, having to help you, the firm, identify the right type of prospect you're looking for is critical, because in the end, again, everyone's going towards the same type of advisor. They want someone who's growing, and they want someone who's got a clean background. They want someone who's successful and maybe has a certain talent. So who doesn't want that? So you really have to have the conviction to make sure that everybody on the team is one cohesive unit,
Right.
moving in the right direction towards achieving that goal. Obviously, one size doesn't fit all, and I'll kind of promote the recruiters here for a moment and just say that part of our responsibility is doing the due diligence on the front end. And so oftentimes there are these early on discussions about what their goals are, what they want to accomplish, what they're looking for. And yes, if we're going to talk about the wire world, of course, traditionally for years, they were just inundated with calls about numbers. And so, they don't know what they don't know. And oftentimes you go through a process where you explain to them, long-term enterprise value and what it's like, and the freedom and the flexibility of, working with one of these smaller or mid-sized or even larger RIA firms. And I think really what it comes down to is a few different things. But number one, what the offering is. And so I think if both sides are transparent and forthright, um, oftentimes a prudent advisor, if they're taking the time to look for their clients for a better home, they're going to find it. And so, with the help of someone guiding them through the process inside, but also internally as well as externally, it really helps to avoid some of those pitfalls that may happen later on towards the end. And I also think that's another value that I bring to the table. I love to strategize. I love to, work with clients to help them better understand the process, and on both sides. I mean, I love receiving feedback from both ends and trying to work with both sides to get to that point. Sometimes in certain scenarios, more successful firms that are aspire to be national in scope, if you will, they will offer a combination of equity and payout because of the fact that they want to replicate what the advisor was accustomed to having at their prior home. And so there's been a few clients of mine in the RIA space that have done a tremendous job of really setting up a firm that is turnkey, that's fully independent. There are a bunch of catchphrases that I really like that I think kind of put it into essence, but independence with infrastructure, partnered independence, full service independence. I mean, you hear all these terms.
Right.
There's many flavors, Baskin Robbins, if you will, 31 flavors of independence, and every day somebody else is coming out with another version. And that's another thing I love about the business, not just networking and getting to know everybody on all sides, but the one constant is change, and we're seeing a lot of it, and things are moving fast. And so oftentimes people don't have the time to do the due diligence and go through all that on their own. So it's great to have somebody to kind of help guide them and save a lot of time in the process and make sure they get the appropriate person in front of them. And who that appropriate person? Oftentimes the most successful firms are folks that may have come from the wires originally, and they speak that language. They understand what that captive environment is, so they can then better explain to the wirehouse advisor that they're trying to recruit the features and benefits of the freedom and flexibility of being an institutional client on the street and having an open architecture, and essentially being able to go out and get the best products and services for their clients versus being captive to one particular product manufacturer or another.
What are the recruiter compensation differences, and do those have a positive or negative impact on the effective outcome of the search effort, resulting in a successful addition of a new advisor to a firm?
Great question. So what I would say is typically in the past, the acquiring firm is usually one that will pay the tab, so to speak. Nowadays, there's a lot of ways that you can go about doing that. I think freedom and flexibility is a wonderful thing. Models are changing, price structures are changing, and so there's a lot of ways that you can do it. If we're thinking in terms of the advisory firm and how to go about retaining a firm like mine or others, I would say there's a few things you can do. Number one, there are plenty of firms that will work on what we call a contingency basis, where they will listen to your value prop, hear your story, and then go out into the marketplace, try to find the right people. If they have someone in their pipeline, they'll send them over. If there's a deal that's struck, they would be looking to, for a fee in that regard. But I would say for me, I try to do things a little bit differently. And so, I have a retainer model as well that I work on, where I can tend to act as an outsourced recruiting department. Not all firms have enough scale or size to go out and hire a seasoned professional like David to come in and run the operation internally. So there are firms like mine and others that would be able to act as that outsourced recruiting department and kind of handle those responsibilities remotely. And so, there are other sides of the coins where I'll have advisors that would come to me and would work with me on an hourly basis, if you will, to help navigate and come up with a plan. And based off of what their needs are, we would determine the right plan. But I would say the recruiter's fee, 9 times out of 10, doesn't have any bearing whatsoever on a deal per se. In the old times when it was, to a wire or to another firm, and they would be paid, let's just throw out a number, 5% or 6% of whatever production a firm was bringing. These firms have national budgets. It has nothing to do with the deal. And oftentimes we're able to really understand what those structures look like. And our firm having a national presence, we really get to see deals on all sides and all channels The last thing we'd ever want to do is get in the middle of putting together a great fit. So oftentimes, when it comes to a competitive situation, we're willing to be flexible in that regard. So therefore, the firm would be happy to add, future growth.
Obviously, Michael, you're a successful executive search firm. You have
Sure.
skills and tactics for finding advisors who are ready, willing, and able to make a move. How do you do it? What technology do you use? What tactics do you use? Anything you can share with us that help illustrate what's involved with identifying and marketing to prospects?
Sure, absolutely. Another great question. For me, it's one of those things. I've been doing it so long, I'm just sort of programmed a certain way to just go through motions. But if I had to peel it back and take someone through a 101, if you will, I'd say it's a multi-prong approach. And what I mean by that is, number one, even if you don't want to add a search professional and you want to do it on your own, go with the basics. Start with your own network. Oftentimes, I find deals that I help facilitate are folks that people know the other person. They may have worked with them before. They may have worked in the similar firm in the past or have friends. They may have come from an advisor that's currently employed with you that has a friend that is looking. So I would start there. Networking. Obviously, social media these days is another huge thing. I was joking about Google, but I mean, there is LinkedIn, there's Facebook, believe it or not, even Instagram, Twitter. I mean, there are so many ways to go about doing it. There are data companies out there that have databases where you can purchase call lists, if you will. For me, I really, over a 25-year period, have developed a very vast and robust network of folks. And so a lot of times it'll come from referrals from people that were successfully placed in the past that are really happy that, a friend will come to them and say, you know what, I think it's time and I want to have that discussion. Who should I speak to? Sometimes I get called in late in the game, and oftentimes I end up, sort of playing the fixer role where, I have to kind of understand, who they spoke to. And you'd be surprised how many times an advisor will talk to just one firm and move forward, and then 10 years later they've been miserable for 5 years. They're waiting for their handcuffs to come off, and so we do a lot of education there. But I would just go back to networking. That's a huge one. Industry conferences. I'll plug you guys again. I mean, Insight. The last time was a tremendous opportunity to not only learn but to meet folks, and so. The one thing I would say about the fiduciary side of the table is folks are very willing to share information, and I feel very honored that I've been embraced by a lot of folks in the industry that work together cohesively. And it's, in the cottage industry, you have so many startups and other, from technology to strategic acquirers to platform service providers that kind of all come together and work to help educate and also uncover candidates for folks.